Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. As we continue these very important discussions about race within the adoption community, I'm really excited for you guys to see a recent segment where I sat down with a single mother who adopted through our agency. Now let's turn to Denise to hear her story. As we continue these conversations of race and adoption, we are really excited to welcome Denise. So welcome, Denise.
Thank you for having me.
Would you say within the Black community there are conversations of adoption? Is it something that's common?
I would say in the Black community, and certainly I'll even make it more narrow and say among my friends and my circles, adoption isn't really something that's spoken about so much. And I'd even say that for the Black community in general, adoption, when we think of adoption, we don't necessarily think of private domestic infant adoption. In the Black community culturally, it's very common that if a family member or a cousin or a church member has a child and can't parent a child, that child, goes to live with his aunt, or that child goes to live with her grandmother, or that child goes to live with somebody who's in the congregation. And it doesn't necessarily translate in our circles necessarily as they were adopted. It's common that people still, if they do adopt in our community, is something that you don't necessarily talk about or speak to the child about, not necessarily being as comfortable with open domestic infant adoption because they just can't fathom the fact that you would be in direct relationship and have a relationship with the birth family. They, I think, intellectually understand that that would be what's best for the child, but most people feel as though that would be confusing. And I just tell them that in most cases that I'm aware of where it is happening, not to say it's always easy, but I don't know that the child is confused at all. But I would say in terms of educating our community, it would be really just in terms of opening up dialogue and making people aware of the benefits of open adoption and that it is an option in our community.
What is your thought on the concept of transracial adoption? Somebody adopting outside of their race.
No, I'm aware. If I would be honest with you, I would say that my thought on transracial adoption is I would prefer that children of African American culture and background be raised by African American families. No question about that. That would be my preference. Knowing that oftentimes that is not an option for parents or birth parents who are seeking to place a child breaks my heart, quite honestly, because it's a difficult enough decision to make a plan for your child. But then to make a plan for your child and then not to have available to you the parents that ideally you would like to seek for your child, to me is upsetting. But at the same time, I do fully realize that, there is a need and there may not be a family for the child with that particular agency. So that's my opinion there. I do feel as though families who do adopt transracially need to be prepared to do the work that we just talked about, right? And not only on themselves, but on their families. And really, they have to be prepared to bring those people who are in their circles along in doing that work. Because if they aren't, and they still keep their foot in the sand with the person who hasn't done the work, it has an impact on the child, right?
And this is kind of a loaded question, but if you had the opportunity right at this moment to voice something to a Black person who is contemplating adopting, what would you say to them in efforts to kind of draw in more diversity of the importance of them participating in a program like ours?
I would say if you're anticipating adoption is something you're just thinking about, my life has been changed immeasurably by becoming a mom. And I came to be a mom through adoption because for me personally, I always just wanted to be a mom. And unfortunately, I hadn't met the man who God had chosen for me to spend my life with. And so for me, I knew I was meant to be a parent. So if you, like me, know you're meant to be a parent, but for some reason you are going to be coming to parenting through adoption, I think that you should definitely consider domestic infant adoption, because domestic infant adoption changed my life, and I would do nothing different.
That was beautifully said.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Switching gears for a second, in talking about transracial adoption, I know a lot of our birth parents, specifically Black birth parents, their emotions have been heightened with the social climate of what's going on right now with the Black Lives Matter movement and just the responsibilities associated with raising a child of color in today's society. Can you speak on that a little bit of, what you yourself are teaching your son and, some of those topics?
Yes. So, yes, it's a challenging time in our country, and a challenging time to be raising children overall, and certainly Black children, right? I took the initiative to send a letter to the class parents, as well as to the head of the school and to the principal and to the teacher, with a book that had been referred to me, coincidentally by another mom in the school whose son was in a different grade. And the name of that book was Something Happened in Our Town. It's the name, and it talks specifically about police brutality against the Black man. And it's a very well done book. And I forwarded them the book read aloud on YouTube. And I had several parents reach back out to me and say, several white parents reach back to me and say, thank you for sharing this resource. I've been wanting to talk to my child about this, but I really didn't have the words to explain it. This made it, easier for me to have the discussion with this book. So I would say, in terms of, it's incumbent upon us all to be more open to having what are difficult conversations. And if a parent is adopting transracially, he or she can't just be, I'm not racist. There's this terminology now about being anti-racist. So even when you hear the term, or when you see something, the whole saying when it was 9/11, where you see something, say something, it's not just about, I'm not a racist. It's about, what are you doing as an anti-racist? Are you speaking up when you see something that's wrong? When somebody in your circle is making an off-color joke, are you speaking up? Do you have things in your home that project the culture of your child? Do you have pictures or books or dolls or toys that project African-American culture? Do you have African-American friends? So you could tell me someone, you have friends all you want, but the reality is, have they been to your house? That's my judge. Now I'm just being honest with you. That's the Denise barometer. You may have been friends with someone at your job for 40 years, and they may be your closest friend at work, but have they been to your house? When you ask yourself these difficult questions, or if you're contemplating translationally adopting, it's not just about this child that you're getting who's going to become a man. It's about, are you prepared to integrate the culture and the people of the African-American race into your life? And is your family? It's something to think about.
And are you prepared to have those conversations?
Are you prepared to have those conversations?
And like you said earlier, I think it can be really difficult, specifically for white people, to have conversations about race, right?
Yes.
I think that's a start to what we're trying to do here, is sometimes you have to be uncomfortable, and you have to be willing to make mistakes and learn and be open-minded and, hear other people's perspective and experiences to try to learn more. And ultimately, if you love your child enough, you're going to do this for them, right? And you're going to take responsibility.
Right. You're going to do the work, right? You're going to do the work. It comes with work.
What would be your strongest piece of advice you could give to a family who is not Black and is raising a Black child?
The strongest bit of advice I could have is that you need to make sure that your child has racial mirrors in the home and in life, in real life, and not just your child, but your child needs to know that it's important enough. They are important enough to them, that their culture is not just, I send John to the group. Let's say, for example, I'm in a sorority. I know for a fact there's the Kappas, who's a Black male fraternity. They have something called the Kappa League, and that's for young boys, I think 13 to 18 as they're graduating high school, where they're mentoring them. So there's the Kappa League. So that's not just you as the mom and dad dropping off Johnny at the Kappa League so that Johnny has the influence of these wonderful, educated Black men. That's you becoming very involved in working with the Kappa League when they're doing their events, when they're having a fundraiser. You getting to know the other moms of the children who are in the Kappa League. That's you actively engaging yourself in the Kappa League, not just driving him to the Kappa League. Although getting him, if you're not going to do either, driving him there is the preference, right? If it's going to be, I'm not coming out of my comfort zone, or if it's going to be me coming out of my comfort zone or Johnny going to the Kappa League, take Johnny to the Kappa League. But the preference is take Johnny to the Kappa League and get involved in the Kappa League. Get to know the people in the Kappa League. Get to know the other moms in the Kappa League. Get ingratiated in the programs of the Kappa League, so that your child understands and sees that it's important to them that not only you expose them to their culture, but it was important enough to them that you became a part of their culture.
Well, Denise, you have certainly given a very powerful message today, and I am just amazed and I am appreciative that you have been gracious enough to kind of share your experience, your perspective, and your story. And there's a lot that still has to be done. Thanks so much to Denise for sharing her story. We're hopeful that this continues to give a platform for Black voices to be heard, and we can continue the discussion about race within the adoption community. Thanks so much, and tune in next week, guys.